fire industry is one of the most regulated, and it should be, industries in the world because of the life protection aspects of it. If you want to be at the cutting edge of fire technology, there are 2 or 3 things you need to be aware of. The first one is the approval standards are mandatory and regulation is important because we are talking life safety. So you have to take quality control as vital, and your controls and procedures and reporting are absolutely essential. Additional to that, you've got to recognize that when you develop a product in the fire industry, even if it takes you 2 years to develop it, or 3 years or 5 years, it might take you 2 to 3 or 4 years to get approvals around the world. So typically, an approval for LPCB or BRE can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Similar for UL. And we have our products approved all around the world. So we are talking millions of pounds in approvals, and the time taken is enormous. Now that firstly is a barrier to entry to other people. And you'll find the majority of the fire companies that we compete with are enormous conglomerates that are absolutely ginormous. Over the past few years, what's been becoming important is reporting. So when something happens on a fire alarm system, you need to know that it's been reported. For instance, if a fire takes place with one of our panels, you can actually remotely or directly on the panel check and say, did the weekly test happen? As you're aware, the weekly tests have to happen to make sure things are working on the system. If the test didn't happen for 3 weeks, you know that people haven't been keeping the system maintained. There's also mandatory required servicing. Again, the panel can tell you it's been serviced or it's not been serviced. You can also tell that detectors in most cases they're getting old, they're getting worn, they're not working properly. You can tell that there's been a wiring problem, an earthing problem on the site. So the amount of data available from TACTIS panel is vast. I think the fire prevention regulations needed overhauling a few years ago, and since Grenfell and the various investigations, there's been some tremendous improvements. Taken too long, in my view, but I understand it's a conservative industry and the implications are vast, and we are talking life safety. But I think a continuous path of increased regulation is required, particularly in the area of training. I think people that are installing and people that actually do the commissioning of buildings, training level and certification level is vitally important so that they know when they're handing over a panel or installing a panel, they are trained correctly on it. We are talking life safety. So I think fundamentally there could be improved regulation. The government, to be fair, is moving in the right direction. I think it could move faster. And I think it actually could increase and have a plan that runs out for the next 10 years. I think as the fire industry is a required industry, it is mandatory, it is regulated. You can't open a building these days unless it's a home without a fire, even the home. You can't open a building these days without having a fire system. I think the government should recognize that the fire industry is a regulated industry that is mandatory for virtually all buildings, new and old. And as such, it's an industry that could have enormous growth, but is regulated very strongly. And I think the government could actually get involved more to protect the industries that are in the UK, that are UK born and bred, and help our customers abroad. So I think, yes, the government could do a lot more to help with regulation. It could do a lot more to do with investment to help us grow internationally as well as domestically.